Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a story about loyalty, legacy, and what is, honestly, probably the most brilliant, ice-cold three-word retort in modern sports history. We're talking about Henrik Larsson, the man affectionately known as the King of Kings during his era at Celtic. We're going to break down how 7 years of absolute blood, sweat, and sheer brilliance on the pitch perfectly validated one defining moment, years after he'd actually hung up his boots. So, let's get right into it.
Okay, picture this. It's February 2026. We're standing right on the fairway at the Icon Series golf tournament. It's this tense Ryder Cup-style format, Team England going up against Team World. Former Celtic goalkeeper Joe Hart is out there securing points, but honestly, all eyes are on Henrik Larsson. As he steps up to tee off, the crowd is packed tight along the fairways. Suddenly, a heckler tries to rattle him, shouting out, "You should have signed for Rangers." Now, Larsson doesn't flinch, he doesn't get angry, he literally just takes a step back, looks up, and with perfect, absolute calm, delivers a three-word response. That's a lie. I mean, it is just absolute perfection.
But seeing that kind of rock-solid conviction begs a massive question. Why was his loyalty to Celtic so completely unshakable? To really understand the absolute certainty in his voice on that golf course, we can't just look at a quick highlight reel. We have to rewind the clock and look at a historic 7-year legacy that forged this unbreakable bond. So let's jump back in time. Section 1. A transfer almost derailed.
To truly appreciate this loyalty, we got to start in July 1997 with this intense behind-the-scenes drama over a transfer that very nearly didn't happen. The magic number here was £650,000. Larsson was playing over in Holland for Feyenoord, where he was often being played totally out of position and was getting pretty frustrated. But the new Celtic manager, Wim Jansen, who actually knew Larsson from his time as technical director at Feyenoord, knew a massive secret. He knew Larsson had a highly specific clause in his contract that allowed him to leave if a club offered exactly £650,000. For a player of his caliber, that was an absolute steal. Though, crazy enough, Larsson actually had to take the Dutch club to court just to invoke it.
But here's the snag that almost killed the whole thing. Once they were in Holland to finalize the paperwork, Celtic executives hit a massive wall. Larsson's agent, Rob Jansen, demanded an agent fee of exactly £140,000. Now, if you know anything about Celtic's owner at the time, Fergus McCann, you know he scrutinized every single penny that went out the door. The agent totally refused to budge, and the entire deal literally hung by a thread. Finally, after a ton of back and forth, Celtic executives managed to convince McCann to just pay the fee without a quibble. The deal was done. And man, thank goodness they paid it, because Larsson walked straight into a sporting pressure cooker. In his very first season, the 97-98 campaign, Celtic's fiercest rivals, Rangers, were on the verge of winning an historic 10th consecutive league title. The pressure in Glasgow was just unimaginable. Yet Larsson, arriving as this relatively unknown Swede with his trademark dreadlocks, stepped up and scored 16 crucial goals. He helped a somewhat makeshift Celtic squad win the league, officially stopping the 10 in a row. The funny thing is, Larsson later admitted he was blissfully oblivious to the real historical weight of the rivalry when he arrived, which, honestly, probably helped him handle the pressure. Section 2. Becoming the Magnificent Seven. It's important to remember, though, his legendary status wasn't instantaneous. Let's look at how he actually evolved into Parkhead's Magnificent Seven. In his very first game, a debut against Hibs, he accidentally gave the ball away, which led directly to a loss. And then, in October 1999, absolute disaster struck. Playing against Lyon, he suffered a horrific double leg fracture. Back then, that was the kind of injury that straight-up ended careers. But Larsson's mindset was just different. Sitting right there on the pitch in France, knowing his leg was broken, he was already counting the months in his head. November, December, January, calculating exactly when he needed to be back for the Euro 2000 tournament. And incredibly, he returned in just 5.5 months. By August 2000, he was fully back, and he delivered what is widely considered one of the greatest goals in the club's entire history. It was the 6-2 demolition derby against Rangers. Larsson took a knockdown pass near the halfway line, surged forward, completely humiliated a defender by nutmegging him, and then executed the most audacious, picture-perfect chip over the goalkeeper. It was a massive statement. The pain of the injury, ancient history. The King of Kings had officially arrived. And that incredible goal set the tone for a season of just pure dominance. Under new manager Martin O'Neill, who brought in incredible talent like Chris Sutton to partner up with Larsson, the Swede was completely unstoppable. He scored a staggering 53 goals in the 2001 season alone. He won the European Golden Boot as the entire continent's top scorer, beating out massive global superstars, and led Celtic to a domestic trouble.
Section 3. Loyalty over riches.
Now, when a player pulls off a season like that, the rest of Europe comes knocking. Which brings us to the real core of this explainer: loyalty over riches. You have to realize that during these peak years, English Premier League clubs, including Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United, were constantly circling him. But Larsson actively weighed the massive financial offers from down south against what he already had in Glasgow. He had European football, he's playing regularly for the Swedish national team, and he deeply, genuinely believed in Martin O'Neill's vision for the club.
Just listen to how he put it himself. He said, "To move down south for a few more pounds a week, it wasn't interesting for me because I knew what we had at Celtic." Really think about that for a second. In an era where players frequently forced transfers for better wages, Larsson recognized the immense value of being deeply rooted, loved by the fans, and just being genuinely happy in his environment. His loyalty, quite literally, could not be bought.
Section 4. The King of Kings.
Let's move to his final chapter in Glasgow and look at the raw data that permanently etched his name into the history books, because the numbers are simply jaw-dropping. 242 goals in just 315 appearances. That made him Celtic's third top goal scorer of all time. He secured 4 league titles. Detractors would sometimes try to downplay this, saying, "Oh, it's only Scottish football." But Larsson's later success, where he went on to win the Champions League with Barcelona and had a huge, impactful loan spell at Manchester United, proved for a fact that he was a world-class talent, period. He delivered week in and week out for 7 straight years.
But of course, it wasn't without ultimate heartbreak. In 2003, Celtic reached the UEFA Cup final in Seville, taking an incredible 50,000 fans over with them. They were up against a Porto team managed by Jose Mourinho, a team that would literally go on to win the Champions League the very next year. Larsson put on an absolute masterclass, scoring 2 magnificent headed goals. Yet Celtic still lost 3-2 in extra time. It was a crushing blow. Larsson later admitted he couldn't even watch footage of that game for 10 whole years because it hurt so much, despite his own brilliant individual performance.
By 2004, it was finally time to move on. During his emotional farewell at a packed Celtic Park, the normally super stoic Swede just broke down in tears. He told reporters later, "I didn't plan to cry, but that's what my heart told me." He left having given the club his absolute prime years, departing as an undisputed legend, before finally taking his talents to Barcelona.
Section 5. Validating your retort.
Which brings us full circle, right back to 2026, on that golf course in the Icon Series. When that heckler shouted, "You should have signed for Rangers," they weren't just throwing out a random cheeky insult, they were testing a legacy. But after 242 goals, after coming back from a devastating leg break, after crying on the pitch during his farewell, and after turning down millions in Premier League riches just to stay in the hoops, Larsson didn't need to argue. He didn't need to get defensive. His 3-word response, "That's a lie," carries the weight of undisputed, undeniable history. He knows exactly what he built, and he knows exactly where his heart was.
It's a really powerful reminder of what a player-club relationship can actually be at its best. So I want to leave you with this final thought. When we look at the constant movement, the crazy transfer demands, and the sheer financial scale of the game today, does this type of unwavering loyalty even exist in modern sports anymore? Will we ever see another player leave that much money on the table for 7 years just because they are genuinely happy where they are? It's a fascinating question. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.